Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me this evening is a woman who I've had the pleasure of literally, she has known me. We've both known each other since we were very young. Literally, she's known me for more than 45 plus years. Lived right around the corner from each other growing up. Had a lot of fun times, enjoyable times together. Know her family well from back in the day, and she is a mom. She is a woman of God, and just a really sweet person in and out. And it's been a long time since I've had a chance to connect with her, but she's jumping on the show this evening to share a little bit about her journey with the hopes of inspiring and encouraging and uplifting others in hopes of impacting their lives in any way possible so that they might be able to deal with challenging and adverse moments in life when they come across their path. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege and honor to introduce to you Miss Monica Jones. Monica, thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, before we jump into our segments, I do want to give you an opportunity to share with the audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, where you're from. Just give them a little snippet, give them a little taste of who is Monica Jones.
Okay, well, Monica Jones is a mom, a grandmom. I work for Fresenius, which is a dialysis center. So I'm working within the medical field. I'm an administrative assistant. Been there for, well, this year will be 20 years since I've done that. And basically, just me knowing me is who I am. I'm just a real person. That's it.
Hey, there ain't nothing wrong with that. Like you said, it's a real person, and just for my listeners, she's always been that way. I mean, it's been a minute since we last talked to one another, and it's almost just like I'm flashing back to childhood. Just same sweet person that she's always been, and just real cool people. So I'm glad to have her on board tonight, and I'm excited to hear what you have to share with our audience. So, with that said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Monica, I'm a firm believer that when it comes to our journeys in life, our stories, you really can't capture the full essence of what that's all about unless you go back to the beginnings of where it all starts. And so that's what we're going to do with you in this scenario. So if you would, let's reflect back to where it all begins. Of course, we both grew up south side of Chicago, literally right around the corner from one another. As you reflect back on your upbringing, as you're coming up in on the south side of Chicago, tell us, what was it like for you coming up? Fond memories that you have about coming up, as well as if there's any challenges that come to mind that you recall in coming up, you can share that as well. Just kind of give people a viewpoint of what was it like for you.
So I really sat down and thought about this. And I was like, I say this to my children all the time. I said, I'm not trying to be funny, but to me, I think we grew up with the white picket fence, the dog, and all of that. We had that type of relationship within our community. And I say our community because our community was more family oriented back then than it is now. So we had the sense of ownership with a relationship with our neighbors, our next door neighbors, the people that lived around the corner, our friends. It was like everybody mattered, and you paid attention to and you listened to your grandmother, your mother, my dad, whoever. And I tell my kids all the time, I said, everybody didn't have the pleasure of growing up in a two-parent home. We did. And it was good, but it was stern. We had my parents were all about making sure we had everything we some things we wanted, everything we needed. But the most important thing was that they made sure that we understood and appreciated that it just didn't come easy. So that's the thing that I think people, when you go back and think about your life, I appreciate my parents for everything they imparted on the inside of me. Even though I didn't understand it then, I was rebellious. I had my rebellious days and times and and everything, but I appreciate everything that they taught me, because when times get tough, you know how to handle those situations, because everything is not easy peasy. Like this life, you think you just gonna live, it's just gonna, everything is gonna come to you. And considering the fact that I grew up in a home with two brothers, the only girl. So to me, that was challenging, because I felt like my parents made me do everything for the boys, and I didn't get that same type of thing. But in the long run, they say the same thing about me with my dad. That my dad made sure I had everything. He gave me everything, and he didn't wasn't like that with them. So everybody have their beginning, but I just believe that um God has a way of revealing your purpose in due time. You might not understand what you're living through and what you're dealing with now, but in the long run, it always has a way of coming to the surface.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you were talking your way through that, again, you hit it spot on. I mean, it was more of a family type of environment back then, that extended beyond your own home.
Mhm.
I mean, so other people's moms and dads were kind of sort of by default. They were your extended mother and father. So if you were out there doing something you had no business doing, it was normal for them to address that and correct you and deal with that. And so you may know that you're going to hear from them, and then you're going to hear from your own parent when that parent got home. But you
And
know,
99% of the time, the parents gave other people permission to
hmm
discipline you. Whereas these kids today, they're like, you better not touch my kid. But I don't believe in that. I believe that, I mean, as times have changed, yes, we have to be careful about, I'm definitely believe in being careful about who we let be in the midst of the children, because you just can't let everybody be around your kids. But then that was a whole nother thing too. We wasn't allowed to just go any and everywhere. And if you did, like I said, those other parents would tell.
right,
Well,
right.
she don't need to be with this person because this person over here ain't right, and she hanging out with them. And if they seen too much of you going in a direction that was not yielding towards what your parents was teaching you, they would tell on you.
Yep,
They
you
definitely
absolutely right.
they would tell on you.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Like I said, it was boundaries, there were limitations,
Mhm.
there was just standards that you were expected to operate under. Yeah, you were still allowed to be a kid, but again, within those boundaries, and like you said, people were looking out for you when your parents weren't immediately around, and that was just a good thing. Just
He
just the whole
was.
idea of kids being able to just be outside and enjoy the outdoors, whereas now our kids don't really even know anything about that. They don't
They
they don't have
don't
that
know what
same fun of running the streets and going
exactly.
to the park and all that kind of stuff. And of course, we had our street light rule,
Mhm.
or
We had, and even us, because we had a porch, so we would sit on the porch, and
hmm
everybody, all the kids in the neighborhood would sit on the porch. And when it was time for you to go home, you knew it was time for you to go home. And so we had our porch, then we had the neighbors down the street porch. We would go from one porch to the next.
hmm
As we got older, we began to call them the porch experiences, because you would learn so much. I mean,
right.
just sitting out there talking amongst one another, you would find out some of the things that you didn't know about your friends or your neighbors that they might have been dealing with and going through. They would find out things about you that they didn't know that you had dealt with or went through. I mean, it was just a time when you expressed yourself. And I think that is one of the issues today. People feel like they can't share. That,
hmm
I can't tell you what's going on with me, because if I share what's happening with me, you're going to look at me some kind of way. But you have to be willing to open yourself up. You can't get healed unless you open yourself up.
I totally agree. You hit it spot on with that, and like you said, just just the concept of the porch, like I said, just sitting there. Again, I'm visioning that all over again. The many times we'd have sat on your porch or sat on other porches and just like you said, just hung out and talked about a variety of stuff. And then maybe every now and then, whether it was a parent in the home or an older person walking down the street and they see a bunch of kids sitting out on the porch, that might have been their moment in time where they decided they were going to teach us about something or, spit some
Yes,
knowledge to us, the
yes,
neighborhood. And it could have been even, and I was talking to your brother about this when he was on the show. It could even be the neighborhood, wino. It could be the neighborhood gangbang or whatever. They would know who was not about being in that life and who was, and they would impart these lessons, even if they didn't have the lessons down themselves, because they knew what we needed to know to not avoid, to keep us from, going astray, getting
yes,
caught up in stuff. You better stay in school, you better do this, you better not be out
yes,
here in these streets, and you're like, well, you out in these streets, and their mindset was like, yeah, I might be out here, but you don't need to be. You got a future for yourself, whether it's, getting your education, being something in life, doing better things for yourself. I mean, you had that, again, that whole community impact, that whole community effect. And it was just it was just very, like you said, we didn't understand it in its
mm,
full scope back then. We were even talking about when he was on. We were just even talking about just the neighborhood business district. When you go around to, for those who may not be familiar with the area, you go over to Loomis and you just think about that whole block being
mm,
full of businesses and how many of them were black owned businesses.
mhm.
The power in that, and we didn't even that didn't
Think
even catch to us at that time, but all different types of business, black business owners, stuff that
grocery store,
today's time,
cleaners, fish
right?
market, daycare, bakery, liquor store,
Mm-hmm.
even the liquor store, because the majority of liquor stores now owned by different nationalities. But
Mm-hmm.
everything on Loomis was black owned,
Yeah.
just about black owned.
And it's funny, like we even talk about the liquor store, like you could go to the liquor store as a kid with a note,
Yeah,
and people at the liquor store would probably know who your parents was. I remember my mom sending me to go get some cigarettes or
yeah.
go get something like that. But like, and they knew who you were. So, and it's like, okay, here you go. Tell your mama I said hi. Tell,
Mhm,
whoever, tell your daddy I said hi.
mhm.
it was just a different time,
It was
and,
a different time.
and,
Because I
and
was
like
like, "You're gonna let us get this?" It was like, "Take this note and get him this money. Uh, We're gonna give you what you want." I was like, "Oh my goodness." Me
yeah,
and my brother would walk to the store and go get what they told us to do. And it's like, but it was like you said, it was a different time.
different time.
Mhm.
But and again, we didn't appreciate it then, but getting older and reflecting back on those moments, it's like, you know, it was really special. And it does play a role in what ultimately our steps, our walk, our purpose ends up being later in life. Those are the stepping stones, if you will. And that's why I like to have that conversation to just give the perspective, the foundational basis of where it all starts, because that family, that community matters so much.
It
And it
does.
does play a role in shaping how we think, how we communicate, how we relate to people. Our compassion, our hearts for people, and want to help and pour into people's lives and be best versions of ourselves. Not that we're perfect, we make mistakes, we fall in short many times, but
Mhm.
it's just there's certain principles that are embedded in you at a young age that you just never lose.
You
It's
never.
just a part of who you are. And
Yes.
and we credit our parents. They did a good
Yes.
job. Just hardworking
Yes.
parents, whether you had a two-parent household like yours or single parents like mine, but they
Yes.
were they were just hardworking people who just wanted us to be
Very.
the best that we can be, and to have the as many options as possible of living a great life, and doing something special with that. So so it's always good to reflect on those times. So Monica, I'm curious to know, of course, as we talked about our, coming up, and you get into that adulthood, and and as we get older, more and more experiences, more lessons we learn, things of that nature. But every now and then, as you're leading life, going through life, and you're dealing with the different challenges that come along with it, every now and then you're going to encounter moments in time where you get a moment of adversity, a challenge, a storm in life that hits a little different. Um, you may be really good at navigating through, challenging moments, but when you get hit with those, heavier times, those heavier storms, you can even get to a point to where you start feeling like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this.
Mhm.
This is a little bit much. This is a bit overwhelming. Even as a believer, you can still, feel like, how am I going to get from up under this? This is too much. This is too burdensome. There's no way out. You start to feel that way and feel helpless to a certain point. So I'm curious to hear from you. Tell us about a time when you experienced feeling that type of feeling where you were dealing with a situation that you didn't know how you were going to come up out of that thing. I mean, again, obviously you're here today and we're glad that you are. And so we know that you survived it, as you
Yeah.
probably have many a storms. But if you would share with us a time where you found yourself in a situation like that, kind of walk us through what that circumstance was and what was ultimately that light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, where you began to come up out of that, if you would just kind of walk us through that situation.
So, one of the most challenging situations, I'm going to say traumatic situations that I experienced being a woman of God and being in ministry and being a member of ministry for many, many years. There was a very traumatic situation that happened during the time my youngest daughter was preparing to get married. Um, After many years of talking to my son-in-law and trying to get him to come in and be a part of the church, and he finally got it. And one day he came in, and long story short, did the proposal even at the church. And they decided that they was gonna get married. So during we had got almost to maybe like 2 weeks before the wedding, and there was a situation that occurred at the church, and I just truly felt like the pastor and his wife, who was the assistant pastor, definitely did not handle the situation at all properly. It caused such a rift. We, of course, ended up leaving the church, but it was just devastating for me. It devastated me. It kind of like to me messed up my daughter's wedding. Um, it wasn't everything that we thought it was going to be, and even to this day she'll be like, it's overrated. But I just think because you missed out on some things, that because of some things that went on, and it was like just a horrible situation. So coming from through that, it took me like really, really down, because you're a minister in the church, and now you like out, you don't have anywhere to go.
Mm.
So it's like, how do you come back from that? And it's like um trying to continue to speak encouragement to my daughter and my son-in-law, and trying to encourage myself in the long run. But and I honestly think my daughter was more forgiving faster through it than me, because I held on to anger, more so anger and frustration, longer than anybody.
Mm.
And it almost took me out. I'm just going to tell you the truth. It was a very disheartening situation. Made me feel like I never wanted to go to church again. It made me angry. I don't think I ever got to the point where I was angry with God, but I was hurt. I was so hurt and damaged. I never could like put my trust in the men and women of God. But how fair is that, to judge somebody else and gauge them according to what happened in a whole nother situation that they had nothing to do with it? And I remember calling one of my cousins who had experienced some church hurt that was similar with the ministry. And I asked her, how did you get over this? Because you can't keep letting this stuff just fester in you. You lose yourself. You lose your self respect. You lose respect for your elders. You lose respect for ministry. It's like nothing. And I was like that. And after all these years of being in church, and you allow one situation to just control you and dominate you to this fact where it just break you down to nothing. And there are so many people who have gone through church hurt and just left the church and never came back. But that is not our ultimate end. And I kept saying, God, I know you got more than this for me. And she was like, you got to keep praying. You got to pray until you got to push. She said, you're going to have to push. And I was like, what? You got to push. She said, you got to push. You got to keep praying until something happens. And you have to get that breakthrough so that you can come back to that place. The devil wanted you to move out of position and he got you to move. So you got to see it wasn't God. It wasn't even the ministry. It was the enemy and who he used to attack you to get you out of position, and you fell for it. And I was like, so now you got to come to a place of forgiveness. Who do you forgive? You got to forgive yourself first. Because until you forgive yourself, you can never get past the situation. You got to forgive yourself for allowing yourself to be put in that type of situation and abused and used and taken out without realizing that your faith wavered and you didn't trust him. And when you people hear you say that, it's like, what did I do? No, I didn't. I didn't. And because of that, I had about 7 years of hell. I mean, I done been through a whole lot of things to the point where now this is the best I felt in many years. I tell them all the time. They was like, well, what's going on? It's about me. It's about me. I never made anything about me. I did everything for everybody else. I was a people pleaser. I wanted to make sure that everybody was satisfied, everybody was happy, everybody was joyous, everything was going good for everybody else. When my brothers, my sisters, or anything, my kids was going through anything, I felt just as much pain as they did because I didn't want them to hurt because that was who I was. I was just so into doing everything for everybody else that I didn't think anything about myself. I had to learn that I matter and that I deserve to be happy too. And so once I kept pushing, kept praying, kept asking God to heal me, deliver me, set me free, because I'm telling you, I was doing some things and I knew it wasn't right. But God is a healer. He is a deliverer. He's a sustainer of the brethren. And I just began to allow my faith to increase. And through that, God has got me to where I am today. There's a lot more, of course, there's a lot more detail. And even in the midst of this, it's like, you don't know your purpose. I don't know my purpose. I don't know. Yes, I do. I know my purpose is to be able to share. And he put people in your midst to be able to share what you've gone through. I didn't never know this. I had a coworker who suffers with anxiety. She has suicidal thoughts sometimes. Even though she's given her life to the Lord, she's still struggling. And God has put me there to be able to speak to her and to and didn't even know this, but we found out we go to the same church. It's just a big church, so it's different services. I go to the early morning service, she go to the next service. So We and he keeps saying God will call your name and have your name called, and you won't even know why. But he allowed me to connect with her. And so everything she do, she comes and she be like, Miss Monica, Miss Monica. But I didn't know that. But God allowed me to experience everything that I experienced so that I can help somebody else. You can't be selfish. And this you gotta be selfless, not selfish. You can't think about yourself. You gotta allow yourself to open up. I can't care about what people think about me anymore. It's about the will of God. Is it in your will? Am I fulfilling your purpose? That's my whole point of view in life.
Mm.
In the meantime, I always say this, you got to have balance, because you can't just have church, 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 and nothing else. You got to make sure that the balance is there. And those are some other mistakes that I realized that I made along the way, even with my daughters. Because it was like Wednesday night Bible study, Friday night praisal service, going to the church on Saturday to clean up, being there all day on Sunday. So, of course, guess what happened? When they got older, they didn't want to hear nothing about church. They was like,
Mm.
no, Mom, that's you. But, he said you train them up in the way that they should go. When they get older, they won't depart and they'll come back to it. Even my grandchildren. I was talking to my grandson the other day and he blew me away because he was like, Nana, you ain't supposed to just be out here and doubting and doing all this. He said, ain't that what you taught us?
Hmm.
And and I was like, oh, okay, check me.
Right.
Yes. Because you thinking that they ain't paying attention, but it comes back up. The prayers of the righteous availeth much. Don't stop praying. My daughter told me something. She said, you a praying woman, right? Don't stop praying.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
that's the thing. Don't stop praying. Prayer is the key to our success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Well, first off, thank you for your transparency and sharing what you did in your story. There's a couple of takeaways, a few takeaways from this. You know, one of the things that you spoke to that happens quite frequently is, simply put, that church hurt.
Mm,
Um, you know um it's so difficult as a believer to, like you said, encounter a situation where you're let down, whether it be by the pastor himself or somebody in church leadership. And it can hit you in some instances depending upon the circumstances involved, to where you're not only disappointed in that individual, but it can distance you from that church home. And
mm,
in some instances, depending upon the severity of it, it can distance you from God altogether, because
mm.
now all of a sudden you feel like that trust has been violated, that bond has been broken, and you're really messed up inside, because it's a big deal to make that decision to be
Yes.
in relationship with God. And you're like, why would you let this happen? Why would you allow me to trust this person only for them to do or say XYZ? And now look what's happened. In this case, you felt like, that whatever that situation, the details of it was such that it ruined, your daughter's wedding. And now obviously as a mother, that devastates you. Like, I want my daughter to have a beautiful wedding, and why should it be, you know, taken aback just because of what takes place? Even when you spoke about at that time, your son-in-law to be, he was, resistant to come to Christ. And then now he makes this decision and he's going all in. And then this is what happens.
Mm,
What happens to him? I sold him on this. And then now he's getting to see, bear witness to something that contradicts what I'm saying, that could potentially make him say, you know what, later for all of this church
mm,
stuff,
mm,
because they're no different than the world. So we know that kind of stuff happens. But at the end of the day, the enemy can't do anything to us that God doesn't allow.
mhm,
And so my take, and this is again my personal take on it, I'm a firm believer that when these storms of life come our way, we call them storms and we oftentimes look at it as a negative thing, but from God's perspective, the allowing of those storms to come our way is really an opportunity to develop. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to really get some insight as to where you are versus where He's trying to take you to. And
Mm,
you spoke to that. He was like, you know, God has placed me in ministry. He's intended for me to be able to pour into other people who are struggling, who are going through. You use the example of your coworker. How do you connect with her if years prior you don't know what it means to be hurt? And hurt, when you talk about spiritually hurt, like hurt at the level where somebody in the faith, in the right there in the house, disappoints you, breaks your heart. If I don't experience that, if I don't go through what that pain feels like and ultimately forgive that individual for and as well as forgive myself for
mhm,
allowing myself to fester and all of that. If I don't do that, then how, then in your case, how are you able to minister to this young lady who you didn't even know that, as far as you were concerned, she was just a coworker, and then you find out that, oh, you go to the same church I do. That's not an accident. That's
mm-mm.
not an accident at all. That is divinely positioned and set up for you to do that, not only with her, but you probably have had other encounters
Oh
in
yeah.
different setups where you've been able to pour into those individuals to be a source of encouragement, to remind them, just as you were getting that advisement about push, you've been able to share that same message because you've gone through it. Who better to talk to than somebody who's gone through what you're trying to tell me or encourage me or uplift me about getting through? You have to go through those things. It doesn't feel good,
Mm-mm.
but it's necessary to get you where you need to be so that you can, at the highest of levels, be able to, again, use the gifts that God has given you to not only advance His kingdom, but to, of course, to pour into the lives of others, as He specifically and divinely created you to be able to be that messenger to other people. So, so that's what makes your story so powerful. Like I said, the over, because I totally identify with the church hurt, because I've had a moment in life where I experienced a church hurt moment.
Mhm,
Where I was, at that particular point in time, I was as far into church as I had ever been at that particular point in time, and then I received a disappointment
mhm,
in a pastor. He
mhm,
showed a side to me that I struggled with
mhm,
mightily, and then there was that part of me that wanted to call it out. But then I was like, but what would I gain in calling that out? Because I
mhm,
potentially could hurt other people who won't be able to bounce back from that.
mhm.
But then if I hold it inside, then I got that hurt and that anger and that frustration, and
Anger and frustration.
and like you said, I had to forgive what I saw as being something on an infraction on his part.
Mm,
But I also had to forgive me for even, just, allowing myself to get caught up like that. Because it's real easy. The thing with that forgiveness piece, if
hmm.
you don't forgive, it's really the equivalent of just like walking around with a poison inside of you,
And
thinking that
that's
the longer you hold it in, that it's somehow going to hurt the other person,
exactly,
when
and
it's really messing you up.
exactly. And that's the thing, because even with my coworker, I tell her all the time, and I was like, she was like, I'm not. I said, you know what? What if God told you He wasn't with you?
Mm,
I said, you have to think about these things. What if God handled us the way we handle people? How would we feel? And I
right.
was like, the only thing that this is always been like our sermons about love during the month of February. This month has been like one of the most awesome messages, month of messages that I've heard about love. And I mean, it ain't about that love. He's showing you different relationships. He even broke down the relationship between Joseph and Mary, how he appreciated God so much that he never consummated their marriage until after she gave birth to Jesus. Then he began to walk in the marriage life, consummate the marriage and live a married life. But before that, he never touched her, but yet and still he still covered her. He married her, he covered her, he protected her. He never allowed anybody to put her in a position to be able to talk about her because
Mhm.
he married her,
Yep.
not even knowing if she really had been with somebody else. But because God spoke to him and he trusted him, that's the same kind of trust God is looking for in all of us. We got to
Exactly.
trust when he speaks something to us, we have to understand that he is moving on our behalf and that he is giving us that decision to trust him. Yes, there's going to be some other things that's going to happen. That ain't the only thing that's going to happen. Did that devastate me? Of course it devastated me, but God had to show me that in your walk in life, there's no perfect man.
Hmm.
So you put so much faith and trust in the man and woman of God that you had more faith and trust in them than you had in me. You cared more about what they said or what they thought about you than you did me. And so because he had to allow something to happen, it wasn't a nothing, it had nothing to do with my daughter, my son-in-law. It was about what the enemy wanted to do to me. And God allowed it to happen because he wanted me to get the lesson out of
Right, right, and that's why I was saying about that forgiveness piece because
it.
it's like
Yeah.
in your situation and even in mine, it was like I had to forgive myself for putting more faith in
Yes,
man
that's
than
the
in
key.
God.
Yes,
Even
yes.
that same pastor that I spoke to you about, I remember distinctly him saying on multiple occasions in church services that, you know, please don't put me on a pedestal.
Mhm.
Don't treat me like a God. He said,
Mhm.
because I'll disappoint you.
Mhm.
And I didn't that didn't make sense to me at the time, but he was
Mhm.
telling you I am imperfect. Now that doesn't excuse, whether it's
What
him
again?
or anybody else in
Mhm.
wrongdoing, but he's trying to tell you, look, I'm not perfect. I may be the man of the cloth. I'm that pastor, but
Exactly.
please don't treat me like I'm I'm
Mm.
I'm flawless, that I don't have stuff that I still battle with. And
Yeah.
then and
Oh,
again, and also to that forgiveness piece, like you said, you might have felt that hurt,
mhm.
you might have felt that disappointment, but just like that person may have done something that you found to be out of order, we also ourselves do stuff
Exactly.
that's out of order, and
Exactly.
we want God to forgive us. We want that extension of forgiveness to be granted at us, and we fall short and slip up. So who are
Exactly.
we to want it for us? But
And
then and not want to give it to somebody else. You
mhm.
can't have it both ways. You can't. Well, forgive me when I mess up, but when
Mhm.
Monica mess up, no, you can't forgive that. She was just dead wrong for that. What about your dead wrong?
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
So it's
And
real
it was
easy.
like friendships were destroyed, relationships were destroyed behind it. And it's like I had to think about that. And I was like, God, you have a way of revealing because there are certain people that is going to be with you all the way to the end. Then you have those people that are going to be with you. They can only go so far. And then whatever level God is going to take you to, he know that this is not the one for you. They not
Hmm.
for you. And he will allow those relationships to fall off. It's not for you to be like, well, why did this happen? Okay, I forgive you. I pray you forgive me, and we're gonna move on.
Hmm.
Because it went as far as God wanted it to go. And sometimes you have to realize that I can only take you as far as I'm meant to go, and that's it. You know, there are things that people do that they don't have your best interest. You be thinking they have your best interest at heart and they really don't. And of course that's a hurting situation, but you just have to know how to put your faith and trust in God because he said that he will have people calling out your name that you never even thought would be calling your name. Doors will
Exactly.
be opening up for you and you'll not even be understanding why doors are opening up for you. And so I had to like I said, I lost myself. And all of these things that I was doing for everybody else, I lost Monica. I didn't, and people would ask me, well, what do you want to do? Especially after my mom passed. It was like, that was like my life. My life. All I did was go to work, come home, take care of my mom. It was like, that was everything. If I wanted to do something extra, of course I would go out and do something, but I made sure I was back in time, make sure I had to take care of my mother. But then after my mom passed, it was like, what do you do?
Mm.
You know, I've raised my children, they gone. So then I poured myself into them. And my brother said something that made me think about it. And it was like, I watch you do everything for everybody else, and you're showing me what not to do because you do nothing for yourself.
Mm.
And I was like, kind of hurt my feelings. But I had to think about it. You do that because you don't have nothing else to do. You so caught up in wanting to make sure everybody else is together that you don't think you deserve anything. And so I got it. Well, now guess what? They like, where you going? Oh, I'm going. I'm learning how to swim. I'm doing things for me. Things I never thought I wanted to do. You going? Yeah, I'm going to learn how to swim. I'm going to do this. They was like, oh, okay. Then I was like,
Mhm.
I'll be back because they so used to like, can you do? Nope, don't have the time. So you had
Mhm.
to make time. I made time for everybody else, but never made time for myself. Now I make all the time for me, and I catch you if I can. If I can.
And that was the whole spirit behind the. I don't know if you caught it. The title of our show for today is "Healthy Selfishness." Is the title of your show, and that's something my
Oh,
stepdad used to say about practicing healthy selfishness, and it's the essence of what you just got through talking about. It's like it doesn't mean that you don't show kindness or be
oh
there for people, whatever. But like you spoke of earlier about that balance, I can't be there for everybody and not
no.
be there for me. Even in ministry, if you
Mhm.
don't practice some level of healthy selfishness where you get rested, where you get refilled, where you get restored, how
Yeah.
can you come alongside other people and you running on an empty tank? Because you're
No.
trying to do too much for everybody. You
Mm.
weren't built to be everything to everybody.
You
But
know, I'm sorry to cut you off, but one of my daily chores was I got up in the morning. I had dropped my grandchildren off at school, go to work, pick my grandchildren back up, go to the church, because we had after school programs. My grandkids would be there. So while they were doing that, there was other programs, fly heap, different things that I would help and do that in the church. On some days, Thursday, I think we had Bible study. So we would stay even longer because after they then went through the whole thing, then we doing this and then go home. You gotta feed them. Well, you didn't have to make sure they did their homework because that was already done. But then you go through the process of getting everybody prepared for bed and turning around, getting back up and doing this. And for years, I did that. So I'm like, I'm going, I'm doing, I'm going, I'm doing for everybody else, but I never did for myself. Everything was about making sure everything was done for the kids, the grandkids, never Monica. So now
yeah,
Monica think about Monica. So I get that healthy selfishness because you
hmm
do have to have it. You have to be able to balance your life and understand. Don't mean I don't love God, don't mean I don't love people. It means that I love me too and that I have to see about me.
even God rested
He
on the.
did on the seventh day.
I mean, so if he found value in rest, why would he not, impart that upon us? You got to have you got to have a chance to reset, to restore, to refill.
Yes.
Otherwise, you can have all the good intentions in the world. You're going to be no good to nobody. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, you do too much of it is
Mhm.
going to impact you in terms of your health. And the next thing you know, you'll look up and you'll be checked up out of here. And then all that what could have been experienced from you, all that God had placed in you to pour into this world, you never get to do it because you done burnt yourself out prematurely, not taking a moment of time to just again to look out for you. There's
mhm,
nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make you a selfish or stingy person, you know. But you gotta have that refresh, that reboot, and that's even something. Even as I speak that to you, that's something that I is a continuous thing to work on for myself. You know, because it's real easy to kind of take on the problems of the world and try to fix everything for everybody to be the, you know, as you said, the Captain Saver, you
mhm.
know, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, because people, you know, they'll pick up on those cues from you, and
Mhm.
and you'll look up and all they'll be their problems, but they'll lay it upon you, and they while they sleeping peacefully at night, you up
You
worrying
were,
about stuff,
yes.
and like, wait a minute, wasn't this your problem?
Yeah, yeah,
Why am I up and stressing out
exactly.
and, you know, hair falling out, getting migraines, you know, ulcers and everything else, worrying about your thing. You're not even taking ownership of it anymore. You just gave it to me because
Mhm,
but I let you. I taught you how to treat me. My mom
mhm,
used to say that, you know, we teach people how to treat. You try to treat us, you
mhm,
know. So who do we have to blame if that's the plate that I set up for people to think, okay, it's okay for me to dump all my stuff on you. No,
mhm.
sometimes it's not okay. I don't mind you sharing if I can be of encouragement, but what you're not gonna do is dump that all. I got my plate already full with my own stuff.
Yeah,
You know, I don't need you to pile more on top of that.
yeah. My
And
daughter tell me all the times, child, I mind the business that pays me. I said, what? Let me get a hold to this one.
right, right.
Let me start minding my own business. She said, child, I mind the business that pays me. And she don't get involved. She said, that ain't my business. Ain't my place. And sometimes I'm like, but that's your, not my business though. That was their decision. That was their choice. Not my business.
And that's the beauty of having God at the head of your life, having that relationship with him, because what he'll do is he'll help you to discern
Mm-hmm.
what
When,
business to mind and
mhm,
when to lead that be. He'll give you that direct. You won't have to figure that
yes,
out on your own, because
yes.
if we depend upon ourselves, especially if we're the type of people that are big heart, big give, yeah,
Mhm.
we'll make that mistake and give too much. You know, we'll do too much. You know, he said, well, no, work on this, yeah, this over here, get that back to them.
Yeah. No is okay. And
No, it's okay.
no is okay. And when you are a kind hearted person and people know that you're a kind hearted person, they tend to um hmm, gear towards that.
Mhm,
But it when you begin to speak the word no, then they're like, oh, you don't have and one thing my pastor said, you ain't gotta push them away. Start telling them no. And they're gonna leave anyway.
mhm,
Because they realize they can't get from you anymore what they used to be able
right,
to get from you. Because as you mature in God, He began to reveal things to you. And as he began to reveal things to you, he showed you how to handle things in the proper way. And so that's just where I am. God has revealed some things to me. He has taught me some things. He has shown me. I tell my kids all the time, some things you can get by hearing a conversation and people talking to you. But a learned lesson is your best lesson.
I like
Because
that.
when you learn it, when you get it, you got it. And you ain't got to worry about going down that road again
Mhm.
because that's a learned lesson. I learned my lesson from that. Mm-hmm.
Love that. Learn lesson is the best lesson. That
Mm-hmm.
makes all the sense in the world. And like you said, God will reveal those things to you. He'll let you know in that telling of in that saying of no. He'll let you know which ones appreciate what you do
Mm-hmm.
and versus those who take your kindness for weakness. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, so so if I tell you no and you get offended, no, well then you've revealed yourself to me. You told me what I need to know. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whereas somebody else, you tell them no, they'll respect that. Like, hey,
Yes.
totally understand. You rest up, you do whatever you need to do. No problem. I'll figure it out.
Yes. Yeah.
And we still cool. There's no animosity. You know, oh, she acting
Mm-hmm.
funny because she
Yeah.
can't do this for me. Well, you forgot about the other 10 times I done did it for you. But
Yeah.
now I'm acting funny because I'm, you know, again, practicing some healthy selfishness. So, So people can be funny like that, but like I said,
Yeah.
we just gotta forgive them. We gotta love them anyway, and we gotta take care of ourselves at the same time. So nothing
Mhm.
wrong with that. So with that said, since we're kind of talking about that pathway of taking care of ourselves and healing, if you will, I'm curious to know from you when you do find yourself going through challenging times. Like I said, whether it's something major like some of what we talked about already, or if it's just some of the day to day, life just lifing, just challenges that we come across our path. What is it that you like to do that works best for you to, as you're processing through dealing with challenging stuff? What do you like to do that allows you to do so? It allows you to do it in a healthy and practical way that you're not getting yourself all worked up and overwhelmed, but you're but nevertheless you're working your way through whatever that challenging situation is.
You know, one of the things that I learned that I never liked was to be alone
Mm,
by myself. And mostly because I was always in a house full of kids or with somebody was always in the house with me. So now I'm at a place where everybody is pretty much have their own. The kids are grown and working and doing their things too. So it allows me to have that alone time. So when you by yourself and you can relax, you can hear from God. You can't hear from God when everything, and it don't always have to be like a voice that he's saying to you. You could just be laying on the couch watching TV, but those thoughts are there, and something will come on or up in that will show you what you're thinking about, and it'll be like, this is the path. I was like, God, I didn't even get that, but I got that. So I've learned to just relax. I never knew how to relax, like just lay and rest. I felt like I always had to be doing something. And sometimes I just lay and relax
mm,
and just waiting for God to reveal to me what he want to show me. And that's how I knew that I needed to put more into me, into my health, into my spiritual life, into my financial life, into my physical life. Everything about me, I needed it to be revamped. And so, that's where he have me now. So he's rebuilding
mm,
me. And people be like, well, you didn't wait till you get to your 60s. Okay. But I'm enjoying my life. And this is the time that he is speaking and revealing different things to me and showing me how to handle things, because you can't speak to nobody if you not healed or delivered yourself.
mm.
How can I help you if I'm not helping myself?
Right.
Um, I gotta be able to show you and talk to you from my heart, because what comes from the heart reaches the heart.
Mm,
And like I tell my little baby at work all the time, I said, baby, the things that you're dealing with, I've been there. I'm telling you, I've dealt with those things. And God has more for you. That's why he have you here. There's people, he surrounds you around the people he needs you to be surrounded around so that you can get the healing and the deliverance that you need. And some things you have to stop saying. You can't keep speaking what was or what have, because he's taking you out of you, he's releasing you from the old and bringing you into the new. Old things have passed away, and behold, I have become new. So if you're going to walk in your newness, you can't hold on to light and darkness. Gotta let
mm.
one go. Which one is it going to be? And so that's where I'm at. I'm holding on to the light. It was a very dim light. It's starting to shine a little brighter. It's not where it should be, but I'm heading in the right direction. That's the way I look at it.
That's awesome,
Mm.
and I love the whole rebuilding. The value that's placed in that alone time, that place of peace. I mean, again, we don't think about those things when we're younger a lot of times, but you start
Mhm.
you mature in life and you mature in your faith, you value that piece. I mean, I've shared this before, just something as simple as, I get up early in the morning to walk the dog and it's still, pretty dark outside, but that's like one of the calmest, most peaceful moments of my day is just
Mhm.
walking and just, talking to God and just,
Mhm.
and so many things get revealed to me in that little 30-minute, sometime hour long walk, depending upon what day of the week it is or what the weather's like. So much gets revealed to me. So many things I'm able to talk through just in my own quiet, private time. Or like as you said, even if it's just sometimes just sitting on the couch and just laying there in your own comfort zone in your own space and just, it doesn't have to be this, like you said, a thunderous voice that comes through the air. Just something clicks in your mind, it's in your thoughts, it's in your spirit, it's in your heart that resonates, that answers a question that you had earlier in the day. That's something you were pressed about. You were wondering how I'm going to work through this, and then all of a sudden, just it almost seems like it's out of nowhere. Like,
Mhm.
and it could even be like I said, it could even be just watching TV. You weren't even focused on the TV show, but something gets said and be like, that's it. That's what I was needing. But you had to have that quiet, that serenity moment, that where all the other distractions around you were eliminated and you were just able to focus on you and be receptive, be that open vessel to have God pour into you and answer to give you that direction, to give you that guidance on whatever it is that either you're working through or what's that next journey or that next project or that next mission he has you to go on, that next assignment. So I definitely relate to that, and
Mhm.
it's a priceless thing. It's
It is.
priceless, and to what you said earlier about sometimes people say about your age, you wait until your 60s, to yeah. I've always felt like what, while there are some things that I may have wished I would have learned or experienced earlier, if I had to choose between when to have the best years of my life, I'd rather have them on the back end than to be that one who thought I had it all going on when I was young, and then I get up in age and now I'm broke down. I got no hope. I got no direction. No God. No, I'd rather let me finish strong.
Mhm.
I'll take the extended time it took me to get to this point if I know that I'm gonna finish on a high note. So when I do close my eyes for the last time, you're gonna have you're gonna have a whole bunch of great things to say. Not it's, your memory of me is not gonna be, oh, he used to be all that, she used to be all that, but then they just wasted away. And no,
Okay, so
we went out swinging. We 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 was
yeah,
on top when we went out, and it's a celebration. There's nothing to be sad
yeah,
about. We
yes,
we went out on, again at the top of our game, at the best, at the highest of our heights. That's where I want to go out on. So,
yeah,
hey, you talked about the age. As far as I'm concerned, you just in the second half.
yeah.
You're just in the second half. That's all you
Well,
are.
that's what we
Yeah.
say at church all the time. I'm living a healthy, long, strong,
Hmm.
vibrant life.
Hmm.
Has nothing to do with my age. I'm living a healthy, strong, vibrant life.
And I can tell, even like I said, even though I haven't physically had a chance to see you in a number of years, I mean, just to hear your, the energy, the excitement, the outlook that you have. I mean, yeah, we both have numerically changed in age, but
Yeah, yeah,
the same 60 plus I see and hear is what I heard the teenage version of Monica. She's still, it's still there. You just, like you said, you're
yeah.
just rebranding, you're just rebuilding. That's all you're doing.
As
You're
as you grow, you mature, and so you know how to handle things in this level. That's all. He just
That's all.
revealed a different way of handling things in a proper way that he's
Exactly.
impacted in you. That's it.
Exactly. That's all it is. So,
Hmm.
great, great. So, Monica, if you had a chance to speak to the younger version of yourself, again, when you reflect back on all the experiences, all the lessons that have been learned and whatnot, knowing where you are today versus what you've been delivered from, what you've gone through, what you've come up out of, what would you say to the younger Monica if she's sitting across from you? What would you say to her? Or perhaps somebody that's like what she used to be? What would be your words of encouragement, your advisement, your guidance, if you will, that you would, impart into her, or somebody like her, that you think would be key, or helpful in basically navigating life with a much more positive perspective, a much more a better approach to dealing with challenging times?
Well, I would definitely tell them that you need to listen. There's one problem that I'm learning as in my age, that a lot of things that was told, I didn't listen. Some things I went through, I didn't have to go through because I was taught a whole different way. But as you go through these things, I'm asking the young people now to just be cautious about your decisions. The other thing is, people need to understand, yes, these are your decisions, but your decisions affect everybody, not just you. It affects your children, your family, everybody, your marriage, whatever it is, it affects. So you have to be able to listen and weigh your pro and your cons. Make sure that the decisions that you're making them in a positive way, and that you're not always falling on the negative side. Because when you go the positive way, this is that path is not always easy, and it's not always narrow. It's narrow, but it ain't always straight. But you have to understand that when you follow Christ, that is the best road to follow. A lot of people have a lot of different things to say about it, but I'm telling you, there's no other way. There's no other way. God is our source. God is our source. God is our source. He's our healer. He's our deliverer. He's our sustainer. He's our protector. And unfortunately, sometimes we have to go through some very difficult times in our life to really realize who He is to us and who we are to Him. Because we are somebody to Him too. He loves us. He matters to us. We matter to Him just like He matters to us. So I think that if you think before you move, and you think before you speak, it will save a lot of people a lot of heartache.
Hmm. Love that. Love that. Great advice. Like I said, listening is key. Could save you a lot of problems, a lot of challenges. Not being in a big rush to do stuff.
Mhm.
Just kind of processing things through. We don't ever want to overthink things, but you definitely don't want to go to the other extreme and and just jumping and just trying to do stuff too quickly without putting any thought to it, and then definitely leading a life where you're leaving God out of it. That's just you know, you learn over time. You keep on trying it your way. Keep trying to
Mhm.
do it without him. You know, let's see how that works for you. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you won't experience, even if you experience some benefits from that, some accomplishments. You still are limiting what you could have gotten from it
Mhm.
had you simply made that connection and had him involved in every relationship that you're in, whether it's work, family, finances. It doesn't matter. Is he in all of those relational situations that you're in, or are you again just doing it without him, or just picking and choosing those moments when I'll let you be in on it this time, but the next time around I'm not going to let you. Are you straddling the fence, so to speak? So again, lessons learned, and it's clear that you have been building upon that, and just again allowing God to lead accordingly, and it's showing. It's showing in who you are and in your story, and where God is taking you. I mean, he's clearly doing a work in your life, and you're making the most of that, and that's always a good thing to hear and bear witness to. And again, as you pour into other people, they need to be able to see visible evidence of what you're speaking. You're
Exactly.
not just, and I'm not just talking.
Okay.
I'm walking it too, and you
Yeah.
can too. You
Yeah.
can too. So it's so important.
Consistency is definitely the key.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It surely is.
Mhm.
So Monica, it has been awesome having you on the podcast this evening. I've truly enjoyed this conversation, just hearing your story, your journey, as well as catching up with you. And So this has really been special. And I know I've been blessed, and I know that our listeners are going to be blessed by your story as well. But before I let you go, as is customary here on the Blessings and Streets podcast, I do want to take this opportunity to celebrate you, to acknowledge you, to love on you. If you got anything exciting going on, any news to share, anything, I don't care, personal, business related, doesn't matter. Anything that you got that you'd like to share with us, we again, I want to celebrate you and lift
So
that up
I
in prayer.
am excited. um, next Sunday is my birthday. Um, the end of March, I will be joining my brother and my sister-in-law. We're going to Hawaii, but I'm really excited because it was really important to my brothers that we do like a family trip. Me, my brothers, and our children, and my grandchildren, they grandchildren. So we are doing a family trip in July that we're all preparing for, and I am really excited about that because family is important. It really is. It matters. And the one thing that I can honestly say that my parents would be so proud that my brothers and myself have imparted in our children that family is important. And that's the one thing that I can honestly say. Now, don't get me wrong, these kids fight and fuss and they do all of that, but they understand the importance of each other. And that's the thing that I really appreciate, that my nieces, my nephews, my brothers, my sister-in-laws, everybody know that we just a family of one big bubble of love. And that's the thing that matters the most to me, is the love that we have for one another.
That is wonderful. And again, definitely something to celebrate. Happy birthday to you in advance. Thank God is keeping you around to see another year coming up. And you
Yeah.
got a wonderful trip planned to go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
We got the whole family situation going on in July. Just again, reinforcing the whole importance of family and just spending it, creating memories with one another and just loving on each other. I've had the pleasure of meeting both of your parents, wonderful people, and of course I know your brother as well as yourself. Just to see that camaraderie still be there after all these years as brothers and sisters, loving on one another and thinking about one another to that degree and wanting to spend time with each other. Because unfortunately, there are families out there where the
Yeah.
siblings are estranged, where they don't talk,
Yeah.
they don't love on each other, they don't care about each other, but you all have always been close, and and to see decades and decades later that bond still being there, you're still looking out for one another, just concerned about one another's well-being. That's special, and it means so much to see your children and your grandchildren and nieces and the nephews to bear witness to this as well.
Yeah.
um Trust and believe, as we've been talking about all along, they're paying attention, and you've
Yeah.
already shared some examples of that where they remind you of some things, you
Yeah.
know that to confirm to you that what you're doing and how you do it, it matters. It
Yeah.
matters, and it's being observed, it's being paid attention to, and and who can't be happy about that? And as you said, your parents would, we could just say, from looking down from heaven above, just with a big smile on their faces, just knowing, that their children are all right, and that they've
Yeah.
done a good job in raising them. Even in their later years, they're still walking that path the way that they always envisioned, and then some,
Yes.
to see what you're doing. So that is just so awesome, and it just brings me joy to hear you speak of that. So
I'm
again.
proud of you, Joseph. I'm so proud of you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
And for my listening audience,
Please.
and I'm not going to say this, but of course, she's being nice to me because, of course, she's not used to calling me Joseph. She's used to calling me my nickname, but she's being nice to me and not calling me out on the internet. So I appreciate her for that,
Yeah, I'm not.
but she wants real bad to call me what she's used to calling me. Probably sounds unnatural for her to even say Joseph, but it's cool. It's cool though. She
Yeah.
can call me. She can call me what she want to call me offline, but But again, though, it's been a pleasure having you aboard. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And for my listeners, if you've enjoyed our content this evening, please subscribe, please share, please comment, please like. Because again, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is what it's all about. We want to inspire, we want to encourage, we want to uplift, sharing our stories, being authentic, being transparent about it, letting you know that we all go through our storms of life. We all go through our challenges. Nobody's immune from that. But what's key to remember is that, first of all, when those storms come, you don't have to stay stuck in that moment. It doesn't mean that it's the end for you. It's just a part of the process of our growth, of our development, of our spiritual enhancement to be the best versions of ourselves. We have to go through what we go through to get to where God has destined for us to be and walking in our purpose and pouring into the lives of others. We have to do that. But in all of that, that relationship with God matters so much. So if you're listening and you don't currently have a relationship with God, I encourage you. I implore in you, please consider making that decision. And I promise you, it'll be the best decision that you'll ever make in life. Monica and I are not telling you something that we heard. We're telling you something that we know firsthand from experience. And I promise you, he will not leave you. He will not forsake you. He will guide your steps. He's the ultimate problem solver, the fixer, the healer, the everything that you could ever imagine and then some. He loves us unconditionally. He wants nothing but the best for us. So with that said, remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. You keep praying until something happens. You keep trusting in God, letting him guide your steps and lead the way. And I promise you, again, it'll be the best decision you ever make. He loves you. He wants nothing but the best for you. We want nothing but the best for you. We appreciate you tuning in this evening. And until next time, you take care of yourselves. And I look forward to seeing you again. Good night, everybody.
Good night.